Hello, everyone. Welcome back to OTD Military History. Today, we are going to be talking about battlefield guiding in Normandy generally. We have a guest trying to get on. We're supposed to have it last week or earlier this week. Something had some internet issues, as the modern world goes. So we have Romain Bréget. I probably said that wrong, even though I just asked him how to tell me how to say it. On today, so he's a tour guide in Normandy. Met him through Twitter, I believe. Been corresponding for a while now, a couple of years, I think. Doesn't feel like it, but it probably has been. Other than that, so if you have questions, fire away as we go along. I will get them in. Anything really related to Normandy. It's not just Canadian. The whole area, stuff coming up. If you have any questions about how you know, about going there or what's the best way to do XYZ, fire away. So thanks for coming on. Finally glad to get you on the channel. Finally, we've been talking about for a while, but yeah, glad to get you on here finally. So
everyone.
Yeah. So as I always like to start, as people know, how'd you get into this? How does one become a battlefield guide in Normandy?
Well, for me, it was mostly becoming a guide first. Basically, I had no idea of what to do after my high school diploma.
Okay.
One teacher told my parents, so, well, actually, since your son is absolutely terrible in languages, why don't you send him abroad to learn another language or to practice another language? So I ended up actually going for 6 months, quite a long time ago, 2007, 6 months in Canada, in Toronto, to well, learn English, basically.
Yeah,
so every time I say this, oh, you went to study in Quebec. No, that was the entire point of going to Canada. That was to practice English. So I went to an ESL school in Canada, went back in France, started to study history and political science, and at the same time started working as a tour guide in the local castle of my small town where I'm coming from, the countryside near Brittany and the Loire Valley. And I really enjoyed doing this job. I quit the study where I was doing, started studying tourism. I got a 2-year degree in tourism, and there was a special kind of thing you could do during this kind of tourism study where you could have extra courses and become an official tour guide at the end of the training.
Right.
It was a weird thing, but I started guiding this way in a castle, did some season while studying art history and history to extend my knowledge. And at the end of a few years of studying tourism and art history and archaeology and history, I started to look for a real job, not just something for the summer.
Right.
And I thought, well, I'm going to be a guide in a museum, in a historical town, in a tourism office. And I saw the job offer for a tour company that was looking for tour guide to take people on the Normandy battlefield. And all of a sudden, I realized, wait, no one told me in all of the studies I've done, all of the college and training, no one told me that battlefield guiding was a real thing.
Oh, okay.
Because I, in my mind, yeah, you get battlefield, but people are going there. There's museum, people are reading the sign, and yeah, in my mind, guiding was art and archaeology and history, but not really battlefield. And when I was a kid, I loved The Longest Day. It was it was one of my childhood interests, alongside with dinosaurs. So I thought it sounded just amazing and perfect. Let's go for it. And I've been here for 10 years now.
Yeah, that's wow. That's yeah. Can't believe it's been that long. Sorry, we're about the same age, so that's just kind of throwing me for a loop. Yeah, because I graduated in high school in 2006. So yeah, it's been a while. That's great. I guess that kind of makes sense. I don't know. To me, I always kind of knew about it, but because we have programs in Canada for sending people, right? Like the Vimy Foundation, and there's other ones. So I guess it's always been in my head that that's a thing. So I guess that kind of makes sense that you didn't really know about it. But
Well,
yeah,
especially if you're a foreigner and you're visiting France, you will think about taking probably a guide on, it could be Vimy Ridge, could be
yeah,
Waterloo, could be any places where something happened. When you are French, these are places where you don't think about taking a guide, because if you're going to visit the landing beaches, you're going to take your own car and you're
yeah,
going to drive around and visit the place by yourself. And maybe if you go to a museum and they have a guided tour, you'll say, hey, let's take the guided tour of the museum. But you don't think about really following an excursion or a tour on the real beaches. It
okay,
just it just not something we do. But foreigners will think about it because they look specifically to go to these places and they want to know more and they want to meet someone local who might be able to tell them more.
right,
Yeah, very few French people will take tours. Millions are coming every year to
yeah,
visit the beaches, but very few are actually taking a guided tour on these places. So that's why I guess
hmm.
it sounds obvious that there is battlefield tour guide, but when you're French, you don't think it's a thing, really.
Is that a cultural thing, or is that just because it's quote unquote local? Um, yeah,
I think it's a bit both. It's both cultural. We don't have. Uh, I see all of the tours, especially if we take a close example, the British. The number of British tours and excursions that are leaving the UK to visit the battlefield every year on the Somme, in Normandy is huge. And there's large companies doing it in Great Britain.
oh yeah,
We have a different probably perspective about our army and military history. It's not as big. I think it's changing now with internet and younger generation being
hmm.
interested, uh, but it's not something we'll really think about. Plus, again, we are local, especially for Normandy.
Yeah,
We know what happened. Our grandparents went to the war and told us a few stories. I can read the sign. I've read a couple of books. I've seen Saving Private Ryan. That's enough to understand what happened. I don't need a guide to tell me what happened because I already know it.
yeah. I guess that kind of makes sense, especially with the spread of the internet, because all of this is now available. Like when I remember when I was a kid, there was nothing, right? So that makes perfect sense. Now, I want to ask about kind of your experiences, and I know what I want to ask, but I'm trying to formulate it in my head. What is your, because again, favorite's a bit of a weird word. What's your favorite, like, I don't know if this is the right word, but stereotypical Normandy thing to do? Like that, everybody kind of knows about and does. Do you have a favorite area or place that you like to go that is, very well known, I guess the best way to say?
Well, the obvious when you a battlefield guide in Normandy uh, is the thing that is the most visited, the thing that are the most famous around here, is all of the landing beaches side between Pont-le-Hoc and Arromanches.
Right.
We actually talked. I know that people are talking a lot about how the British are often forgotten also about the history of DDay. But when the French are thinking, at least about visiting Normandy, they will visit Omaha Beach area because that's Omaha Beach with Pont-le-Hoc and that's the American Cemetery,
Yeah.
being very dramatic for all of them. And then many people will know about Arromanches
Okay.
because that's the mulberry and that is visited by a lot of people. And same thing for the gun battery of Longues-sur-Mer,
Right.
which is very visual, even if less thing happened there. But that's the most visited and the most famous place for European in general. Then Americans, North American in general, will know a bit more about the American side, and Sackmann is also being extremely famous. But when you look at how busy the area can be, it's mostly between Pont-le-Hoc and Arromanches. You get millions of people going there. So
That makes sense.
it's the famous thing that usually, if you're not American or Canadian or British and you want to know more about the participation of your country when you're European, what you want to do is in priority this part of the coast, Pont-le-Roc, Arromanches. The rest is kind of a bonus, Sainte-Mère-Église and Pegasus Bridge on both sides being extremely well known for their own reason as well.
Yeah.
But all of the rest, Gold and Juno and Sword, even Utah Beach, and they're not as visited as this central part of the landing beaches.
That's interesting. Do you think that has to do with, like we already mentioned it, like Saving Private Ryan, that time period, you know, in the late 90s, early 2000s, you know, Band of Brothers. Do you think that plays into it, or is it longer than that? I mean,
it's been longer than that, because when you look at some of the first museums that were open to develop the tourism, you got Arromanches.
Right. Yeah.
Arromanches was the first one, and now they've got a brand new museum, which is, I think, quite well done. The old one was becoming way too small.
Yeah,
but they are one of the first towns that managed to capitalize on what we call memory tourism, and to explain the harbor. And that's why it's so visited here. It's because Arromanches had been on every guidebook, every itinerary for the past, since the late 1950s. I think the museum was open in 59, something like this.
Something like that.
That's quite a long time ago. Then you get a little bit Utah Beach, but it was very small, and then you get the Airborne Museum in Sainte-Mère-Église. And that was all before Saving Private Ryan. You had, of course, The Longest Day. Arromanches was made. The Arromanches Museum was made just before The Longest Day, and then The Longest Day pushed people on Pegasus Bridge, on Longues-sur-Mer a bit, and Sainte-Mère-Église, and then Saving Private Ryan with the cemetery. So it definitely had an impact, but how some of these places developed as famous places, that's sometimes decades before Saving Private Ryan was released with Benny Brothers.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I mean, well, also I have my own feelings about Arromanches, but I'm sure you've heard them all. But I mean, it's visually striking, right? If you kind of do one of these and try not to look at everything else going on there, if you're just looking at the actual, what's left of the Mulberry Harbor. It's a visually striking thing, and if you're coming off the cliff, I mean, it's hard not to beat that view. I mean, I have a problem with the rest of it, but I mean, it's an amazing place to visit for that alone. I mean, I was finishing something up, and I literally just found some footage of them putting the mulberry in place at Arromanches, and it's just fascinating to see. So my paired question with that is what is your less popular, less visited favorite place to go?
That's a really good question. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. Like, I couldn't say, I think, really one single place. I mean, I obviously, because of the job and the fact that we have a lot of American visitors and going much more often on the American side, I always found, if we take different answer, let's say that on the American side, I like the bocage a lot. Not just the one you see around the landing beaches, but the deep bocage around Saint-Lô, which is, you got some fantastic sight and pictures to do, and a few of the 82nd Airborne Memorial and Battlefield, because since Band of Brothers, everyone knows about the 101st Airborne. Everyone wants to follow the Band of Brothers footstep, and the massive job and fighting that was done by the 82nd Airborne is now almost completely forgotten. So it's really enjoyable to take people out of these speed and tracks and show them the other side. On the Canadian side, I think I enjoy more and more the stopping in Hill 67, just south of Caen, because that is part of the period. The Canadian fighting around the landing beaches, even with the German counterattack, the 12 SS counterattack, is quite well documented, also because of this morbid fascination for the 12 SS. So it's quite well documented and known, but all of the fighting that happened after Operation Charnwood, for the Canadian is less known. And when you're on Hill 67, just the point of view this kind of stalemate for Wicks and some of the bloodiest battlefield for the Canadians, not just with Rerecich, but the entire part. It's really, really interesting to see. That's one of my favorite parts. Whenever I have a little bit of time left, I'll always tell people, okay, we're kind of running out of time, but if you feel like I can get to that Canadian memorial just to open to what happened next, I think that's one of my favorite places to go as well in Normandy.
Yeah, I mean, it's I mean, geographically, obviously, it's well, yeah, Dave Patterson's right here, right now. Canadian Battlefield Foundation, right, is behind putting that together, right? That's why it's there and why it was preserved in that way, and what you can do with it. It's almost like it's not fake, but set up so that you can see all these things on a tour. It's like they put a tower in place. It just happens to be real and a real place that was fought over and leading, and you can see all of this. You can see the path of the advance, and that's something I'm going to cover myself a lot. I've already planned lots of time there. Yeah. So
that comment is exact. I mean, you got it's thousands of Canadians that became casualties within a couple of weeks around Hill 67, and everyone is so focused, which is understandable, about Juno Beach, and then about even this kind of back and forth with the 12 SS, which resulted then for stalemate for quite a long time, and you get that battlefield, which is so bloody and important, which is not covered by too much history. Well, you had very good book written about this. David O'Keefe wrote one with the Blackwood recently. It's really interesting, but still, it's not really thought as a place to take people, a place to visit when Canadians or foreign visitors want to know what happened. It's still too much about D-Day.
Yeah, I mean, that's a common thing. I hear that from everyone, and I know it myself. It's about D-Day. So especially going south of Con, I feel it's missed. But again, that's the Canadian context, and that's something I'm hoping to do something about. So, and I've already marked all my spots, like stop the car here, stop here. I've got, I don't know how many south of Con. It's a lot. So I'm excited to get there and cover that. And Dave is now saying they used to climb the water reservoir. Now I remember him telling me this to get a better view, which is funny because that's gone, I think, or it's moved.
No, I think I see. The water, which is a little bit further behind it's kind of weird. To be honest, it's not a place which is very well indicated. I mean, if you don't know it's there until the last minute, you don't see any sign. And not only the view is fantastic, but even just the memorial, the way they set up. I was there recently to take pictures because I think on Twitter I contacted the Foundation of Canadian Battlefield, which is taking care of this, because last year I took a family member on this memorial, because that's also where you got the plaque for every regiment of the 2nd Canadian Division. And his father was in the Essex Scottish Canadian Regiment. And all of the plaques were here except the one for the Essex Scottish that was missing because it was probably damaged. So I went back there to take a picture of every single plaque to see how damaged they were, so that they could think about I don't remember with who I was in touch, someone from the foundation. That was you. Okay, perfect. That was you. Yeah, because I think it's a really, really nice monument. And for the 80th anniversary, that would be great to have this. A few plaques that are in a bad shape or missing.
I mean, it's weather and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, of course.
We're used to that as Canadians. Everything takes a beating here, so it's not uncommon for us, especially. But yeah, that's one I tell people about. I mean, it's hard to get people like who have a general interest, and this is my experience. Maybe yours is different. To get people away from the beaches, to try and convince them to do something else, or other places have value. Because people have asked me, and people have gone. They're like, "We're going to France. Like, we'll go to Normandys, or like the beaches. Is there anything else?" So, and I try to tell them about that, and especially that spot, and some further stuff on further down south, with the closing of the gap. That's my recommendations, but it's pretty hard because some people don't want to drive in a foreign country.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
That's why we guide and drivers are here. You don't want to lose your way in the countryside. And I know, because being a guide, I myself got lost, especially in the Canadian sector between Juno Beach and the Ardennes Abbey.
Oh, yeah.
My first year, I got lost quite often. So that's why I remember one of the first two I did. I had to go to the Canadian cemetery, Benny-sur-Mer.
Yeah.
And I was trying to remember what I was shown on the training, because I was trained by a fantastic tour guide, Karen Poulard, who was working with the tour company I was working for. And she trained us for knowing the road, the memorial, the place you can eat, where you can stop for restroom, things like this. So it was a lot to take to know everything about the 5 landing beaches. So in my mind, I got the idea. I'm getting out of Courseulles-sur-Mer. There's a roundabout. I turn right, and then I find the cemetery. And I took the wrong roundabout outside of Courseulles-sur-Mer, just at the exit, just before the McDonald's. And I ended up in a little road, and I got 5, 6 people behind me, all Canadian, who think I'm a professional expert tour guide. And that's my very first year. And I'm arriving in a field, and the road is leading to a dead end with a water tower in front of us. There is no turn back. I cannot lie to say, oh, we had to make a detour because of this and this. No, I basically run into a dead end in a water tower. So you have to be honest and say, well, you know what? I just got lost. Oops.
Yeah.
And let's put on a GPS.
Yeah.
And you're losing immediately every credibility. But
yeah,
it can be challenging to try to find these places by yourself.
Yeah.
And but in a way, that's why we driver and tour guides are here.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I try to tell people if they can to do it, even if it's for a day. Like I've had people do that. Like they listened and they did stuff, especially coming from Paris, because that's where a lot of people go, obviously, especially from this side of the Atlantic. Yeah, extra tours of the French countryside of Nocam. There you go. Extra viewing. I don't know. I just I like the scenery, so I don't know. It reminds me a little of home. Flat farmland is where I'm from, so it's very reminiscent of home for me. A question from one of our viewers here. We kind of touched on it, but maybe one that you think, and this is across any of the area, Normandy. This doesn't have to be just one section or the other. Is there one place, as Bruce says here, place or event that you think should be getting a lot more attention than it does?
There's a lot of that as well. If we try to stay on the landing beaches, for example.
It doesn't have to be.
Yeah, well, just because same thing, we were talking about so many things, how to answer something like this. But in general, everything that is behind the landing beaches is completely overlooked. People don't know about it. People don't think about it to the point where even when people had relatives and they're coming and say, well, he landed, and he was killed during the landing, and you look at the date, say, hey, he was killed in July. Yeah. Oh, really? I thought he was killed on the beach. No, he landed on the beach. But he was killed in July. Even people who have relatives sometimes don't know that after DDay there were a lot of fighting for a couple of months. Everything that is behind of the landing beaches is completely overlooked. And I'll say, even if it's not that overlooked now, thanks to the job of Canadian author, this counterattack of the 12 SS, which is an important moment, because even if it was a kind of piecemeal, very badly planned counterattack, and without a good Canadian resistance, it would have become a real danger for the entire beachhead. The same way you can say the same about the British and the 21st Panzer on DDay itself. For the Americans, it's a bit different. But this kind of first counterattack it's so important. It's right after DDay, and people usually don't know too much about it, even if it starts to change, especially on the Canadian side.
Right. Yeah, well, and Niels, who obviously we know and knows his German stuff, it makes. I think this is a good point he's making. He's putting it as a question, but I think I know where he's going with this. Is everything in July overlooked?
Basically, kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not just everything in July, because if we just take even a week after DDay, one of the only thing that people might have heard about what happened just after DDay is 40 ans.
Right.
The fighting in 40 ans, in a way, highlighted thanks to Bene Brothers. But if you think about it, no, there's not a lot of. It's not only July, August is not very well known. I was recently visiting some part of the south of Caen and Bayeux, the Suisse Normande, the Norman Switzerland, as we call it, and we stayed there in this kind of weird landscape, which is filled with cliff and the Orne River and little town everywhere and bridges, and there were a lot of fighting, especially in August by the British. And that was the 59 Division, I think, and I was looking at the monument, and I felt, well, that sounds like a really interesting story. Let's try to find, is there a book written about this part of the fighting?
Okay.
And there's absolutely nothing. Nothing. The British will talk about Epsom and Goodwood. Well, Ben Main will know that there's no books about Operation Charnwood for the British side. It's a lot from the Canadian, not from the British. Operation, Goodwood as well. But they don't talk too much even about anything they've done in August. So if you think July is overlooked, and you got the Battle of Saint-Lô, and we got all of the fighting south of Caen as well for the Canadian, the Rerecich as well. If you think that July is overlooked, August is even worse. Except maybe Operation Cobra, but even people don't know exactly. Many people won't know exactly what happened in Operation Cobra. If they know, at least it's the breakthrough.
Yeah, that's kind of my sense, but again, that's coming from Americans, is those who are really interested or even somewhat interested know about Cobra. They don't really know what it means, or what that looked like, or where that even remotely was. I mean, people will probably just pick a spot and say, it's around there somewhere. I think that's a common one. This is a good point, and it actually leads me to a question. If you want to see, you got to spend at least a week. It's true, if not more. There's a lot to see, and this kind of comes up from people who don't live in the area. Is the accessibility? Does that come up a lot for you? That it's difficult to get there and get around? I mean, to someone who's an outsider, it seems like it's a bit of a difficult thing to get around. So convincing people to go into these tiny little towns that they've never heard of, is that a difficult thing to do? Or
it's the accessibility in terms of transportation infrastructure is never a problem. The roads are paved. If you know where the thing is, if you can be very precise with your GPS, you'll get there without any problem. The accessibility problem is usually about, if you get somewhere where there is a monument, you'll have a monument, but very often that monument won't tell you exactly what happened. There'll be a monument dedicated to that unit and all of the fighting they've done in this place, but they don't tell you the story. So if you go there by yourself thinking, oh, there's a Canadian monument here and there's a Canadian memorial there, but you haven't read about what happened in these places, going there won't give you any more information or detail. For me, it's part of the accessibility. If you're going to a place and you want to understand what happened, it's complicated because you don't have the explanation on site. So you need to read about it before. You need to have a tour guide. Physically, the accessibility is simple. The biggest problem for me when I'm organizing a tour is not about driving to the location, but if I'm touring for the entire day, which we usually do.
Yep.
I need to think about a place to eat.
Yep.
Which is in France, but especially south of Caen can become a bit complicated. And restroom.
Yes.
And this is when you're working in tourism and you're working as a tour guide, you know how important restrooms are. And it can be very complicated when you're in the countryside to have a restroom for people. This is always one of my big issues is if I'm going over there, is there a place where we can have a restroom nearby?
Yeah.
And that's part of the logistic and the accessibility.
Yeah, not gonna lie, that's the one thing I got to do some planning on is trying to find a bathroom. Because if it's just me, I'll stay out there all day, right? I'll be there from sun up to sundown. But I got to go to the bathroom at some point. So, but yeah, I mean that comes up. I think that's every battlefield type of tour. Like you hear the same thing for the First World War.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
the same. Western Front, it's no different. Seems like it's the same. And figuring all that stuff out. Ben showed up here. He just said he showed up when he heard his name. That's okay. We were talking about Charnwood and Goodwood and the stuff south of Caen. Bit of a where'd it go? Sorry, 1 second. It's a good question. Okay, yeah. Or I mean, we can do this bigger and ask a couple of things if that's okay about the French civilians. So Rob is asking, killed on D-Day or a general? Is there commemoration of the French civilians who died during the campaign, I guess, and before?
It seems to me that there was a big shift on this recently, about at least 10 years ago, when in the 2010 there was an effort made by universities, student and professor in Normandy to try to have a better idea how many French civilians were killed, not only on D-Day, but also during the entire Battle of Normandy, how many in each place. So now the number is pretty much agreed on by everyone. It's about 20,000 during the 3 months of fighting. We know which places suffered the most. And in 2014, now that was my very first big anniversary, 2014, there was a special moment, I don't remember where it was, to commemorate, I think it was in the Memorial of Caen, where the French president was there, it was François Hollande, commemorating also the losses of life of the civilian. And I think, I'm not certain, but I think it was a first for a French president on a big commemoration to have something, a speech about the civilians, and then do all of the other commemoration on the beaches.
Right.
And since now, there've been more and more interest about this. And the thing is, you don't have a lot of monuments about it, only in places that suffered a lot. And even then, it's difficult in Caen to find the place, the monument, but there's one about the civilians. One of the most striking place to go to is Saint-Lô, because that's where you have a special plot in the cemetery of Saint-Lô, where you have those that died during the bombing of June 6 and 7. So I think every year they have a commemoration there to remember the civilian casualties.
Yes.
So we don't have tons of monuments, but quite often if you go inside a local cemetery, you walk across some of the grave and you will find people, you will find dates of June 6 and 7. You go to, you see all of the June 10 or 12, all of the, and you know, when you know about the fighting that went through that village and you see the date, you think, okay, that person, that family, that woman was killed during the liberation or during a bombardment. But it's not something centralized, and you don't have a lot of monuments about it, because it was a painful history, and it's how do you commemorate something like this? So now it's changing.
But that's kind of what I want to ask about next is how do people who live there think about this? I mean, it's a high number of casualties, 2025. Just thinking about, how it's done, how is it remembered there? Is it even talked about much? Is that changing or changing your experience?
Again, I think now, yes, because there'd been enough time. The suffering of these people had been recognized to the highest level, even by the government. A lot of French historians, even American historians, started to talk about this. I mean, one of the big book, French Under Bombs, I think, French Under a Lies Bomb, I think was, is an American author.
Okay.
Well, at least, well, someone speaking English, don't remember he's American or British, but he did a great job in explaining, well, the French people, French civilian and the bombs. So it's more recognized, and now, especially with the perspective of time, people, the local people I see and I'm talking to, they don't feel angry about this.
Okay.
They don't even feel too sad. They want, it's part of what we had to go through,
right,
for our liberation. There is a place, a town called Percy, which is south of Saint-Lô, not too far away from all the Operation Cobra type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was devastated during the war. And in the city hall, they kept a wall with, they renovated the city hall recently, and they kept a wall with impacts of bombs and shrapnel.
Oh, wow.
And they made a plaque next to it. And the plaque says, in French, something that would translate into, that wall bear the marks of the liberation.
Right.
So this leftover of destruction is kept as a memorial to commemorate the liberation of the town, because without this destruction, we wouldn't have been liberated. That's how people will see it today. And even about the human losses, it's been a long time, and people are, again, it was a different time. And there was I'll tell you a story. It's kind of terrible, weird moment that we had, but so interesting. I was with a friend. We stopped in the countryside because there was a flea market. He was looking for things about World War II, and he was looking at pieces of a Jeep or something. And we had an old guy, that was in Cerisy-la-Forêt, just north of Saint-Lô. And an old guy just walked next to us and told my friend, "Oh, do you know what these are?" So, well, yeah, he's owning a Jeep. He knows very well what these pieces are. And the guy started telling us a little bit about World War II. "Oh, you tour guide from World War II. You know, I was living in a farm just north of Saint-Lô. Oh, we saw all of the bombardment and all of the fighting and everything. So we started to exchange with him. And we told him, so you were there during all of the bombing. You saw it. Oh, yeah, we saw all of the bombardment in Saint-Lô. But then a few days later, it was our turn because the Americans were coming and they were shelling and everything." And well, he was telling us the entire story. And one moment we had to evacuate. So my parents told me, "Take your little sister by the arm." He was about 9 or 10 years old at the time. "To take your little sister, try to get away from the farm." So he was saying, we were in a field. I was running with holding my little sister by the hand, and a bomb exploded next to us, and a piece of shrapnel just hit her, and she was killed.
Mm-hmm.
And he kept going. Anyway, after the war, I started working in a construction company. Wow. And it was really fun. And he started to move on. And when we stopped him and told him later, "Well, but so we were so sorry about your little sister," and she, "Well, it was war. What do you want me to tell you?" It was, well, she didn't live much. That's terrible for her, but you move on. Yeah. So it's kind of that's how people are feeling now. It's yeah. There's no bad feeling or kind of there's a little sadness, but it's been 80 years now.
Yes. And
they've seen the benefit. They know also they're glad that it was not for nothing.
Right.
They're also happy to see people being, you're coming from a small place, you can imagine, and all of a sudden you kind of the same every year, and especially every 5 or 10 years, your region is the center of the world for commemoration about freedom and liberty. So you think, okay, that was terrible and sad, but it worth it.
Yeah, I mean,
It was for a good reason.
it makes sense. I mean, I was there quite a while ago now. It's been 8 years, but I get the sense of that. It's because we talked to people, and because Dave was the tour leader, we talked to some people who were there and lived through it, and especially people who were in Auti. She was there through all of it. Anyway, about it's just almost a sense of it. The phrase in English, it is what it is. There's nothing we could do. We needed to get these Germans out of here. So if this is what it took, this is what it took. I mean, that's the sense I got. I mean, there was people angry because there's going to be people angry. I mean, that's going to happen, but it seems like that anger, like you said, subsides. It's almost like like with a person with age, they kind of not angry, but still can be sad and remembering. It seems like France is on that same sort of trajectory. You know what I mean? As the years go on, right, it seems to take a different meaning. I mean, it's not surprising given what happened and the whole thing in France and the whole collaborationist government and everything, which is a whole other thing. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me. So we'll go a little bit lighter here, if that's okay. We hear this a lot, those of us who are involved in this and history and guiding and connected to this in some way, about what's happening in Normandy. People are calling it, the Disneyfication of certain spots. I wanted to kind of know your feelings, if you're okay talking about that, because I know it can be quite a controversial topic. Do you see it as a good thing, bad thing, somewhere in the middle? Like, what are your thoughts on all of that stuff that's going on?
I can almost say it depends on my mood sometimes. At one point, it's for me, it's always been, where do you put the line? There will be some kind of a I don't know if it's a Disneyfication, but things that are made for the tourist, to attract the tourist.
Yeah.
But it's a place of memory. So how do you keep everything balanced? How do you keep more people coming and using new technology and offering? It's the word that everyone wants to use in tourism now. How do you make people live experiences?
Yes, right.
It's not about it's about the experience, and that's where I think can be a bit too much when you think about these words. Is where do you draw the line on that experience?
Right.
You want people to understand what happened, and you want them to almost feel how it was like.
Right.
But where do you stop to a point where it's no longer decent? And that's, everyone will have its red line. There's a museum a few years ago, which for me it was clear that he went through the red line, but I couldn't say really anything. I mean, and that museum wanted to use some new technology, including virtual reality. So they got an idea. Let's create some kind of a little virtual reality helmet type of thing that exists. And people will be in a ruined French town, and they will have to play an American soldier, and you need to grab a machine gun and kill as many Germans as possible. And that, for me, was definitely going across the line. It was definitely crossing a line. Video games where you kill German soldiers, I played them when I was a kid in Medal of Honor, and things like this. And it's not a big trouble. It's part of the video game industry. But there is a place to do it or not. And to have that kind of video game where you need to kill as many Germans as possible in a place right next to all of the landing beaches, a place talking about the history, for me, it's that experience it's not decent, not in a place like this. That's not what you want people to think about when they're visiting here, killing German in a video game. Hopefully that kind of new experience didn't work very well. I think it lasted 2 years in that museum, and then they got rid of it. And museum's great, but that little thing for me was crossing a line. So it's all about where do you cross the line? Some people will say, as soon as you had the fake John Steele on the steeple of the church, that was way too much already. It's now we got the project that everyone called DDay Land, which we don't know if it's going to happen or not.
Right.
Is it too much? Is it what? It's still a very, very active debate amongst local people.
Good.
Because some local people will see the benefit of tourism, but many of them, because of its history, have a very sensitivity about this subject. It's good to welcome a lot of people and also make money out of the tourists. Right. That's how tourism is working.
Yep.
But they will be very sensitive on how do we do this. So it's still a very, very alive debate in Normandy. Just look at how crazy it went when there was and it wasn't even Disneyfication, when there was an idea of, instead of an old collapsing warehouse next to the Zhiyun Center, they wanted to build condominiums.
Yep.
And you've seen how, even for the Canadian and even the French local, how people were fighting about it. What should be done? Is it acceptable? Is it not acceptable?
Yeah.
So, Disneyfication, I don't know if I like the word, but if we continue to have too much of this idea that we want people to live experience, then you got to ride on a C-47, which is only something that you can do, a fake ride on the C-47, which people love. You got more and more tours in Jeep, because it's cool to drive around in a Jeep, and I understand people are attracted to this, but if we only want people to live an experience, then what about the content? What about the actual fact and the remembrance?
Yeah, definitely complicated. I mean, I don't have any
answers. It is very controversial.
I think you said it right at the beginning there. What day, when are you asking me this question? What's just happened or not happened? I mean, I think it's so circumstantial is the best way to say this for me as well. I mean, it's hard not to. I mean, I get it, right? That's some people's livelihoods, and you got to do what you got to do. But also, like you said, it's this mix of commemoration and, well, in North America anyway, it's almost edutainment, right? Education, entertainment, which is what so many people aim for in so many different ways. It's problematic in my opinion. So, but also you have people who live here, and that was the point of the liberation, right? Is do what you want with your homeland. It's yours. This is why we came here, to give it back to you. So, you know what I mean? It's so complicated, and it can get so emotional and so heated and so much misunderstanding as well. I think that's a big part of it, for me at least, is some people just don't understand everything, or they don't try to, and then people just have, get upset. So, I mean, it's a lot. And I mean, Hermitage is the first thing that comes up to me when people talk about this and that new plan for that new museum with the whole, that whole thing that they were trying to do. I mean, I think there is a way to do that sort of thing. I don't know if you've been there, but the museum in outside Arnhem at Oosterbeek, where they've done it literally in the basement and added this new thing to the house there, which was the headquarters. Anyway, they've done an excellent job, but it has some of those elements. I don't think they went overboard. So I think that's just my opinion. Some people probably think they did. But I think there's a way, if anyone who's been there knows what I'm talking about. I think that's a good way to do it. But I mean, it's complicated. I guess we'll see what the 80th brings. I don't know. Like, what do you think that Normandy is going to change in that sense after the 80th? Do you think it's just going to keep going? Do you think we'll see something different, right? Because we're definitely not going to have any vets left.
It was a guy who was part of the, I think it's Jean Chrétien, who is the director of the committee of the landing comité du débarquement. And he was saying, no matter what you think, it's the 80th anniversary is going to be the end of a cycle. We had a cycle for 40 years until 1984, where you had, it was about local commemoration, it was remembrance, it was something, it was also, you had some of the first tourism with the longest day, but it was something more local. And then for 40 years, since 1984 and Reagan, it became international, and it became centered around the veterans.
Right.
It became the focus point of these last 40 years. The veterans, the people that were here to commemorate and celebrate them. And we're still going to have a few, I don't know, I won't say 100, but dozen of them coming this year.
Yeah.
But at the end, this is no longer something that we will see on the commemoration. Well, they will still come for a few more years after the 80th, but at the end of a cycle. So what's coming next in probably even until the 100th anniversary, which is going to be another milestone. But for this for the next 20 years, what are going to be the big theme? What do we want to put forward in our memory and our commemoration? How do we want to remember all of this now that the veterans won't be the center of the commemoration? So that's what's going to happen. I don't know. I don't think it's going to decrease really when you see the amount of interest on Normandy. It will continue to be a massive amount of people coming here for the commemoration or visiting, but it's all about the officials and also the museums, the local institution. They're the one organizing all of this commemorations. What do they want to put forward? What do they want to exemplify? What do they want to? It's going to be interesting, and certainly so many things can change. I don't know. I'm looking at what happened for the 100th anniversary of the First World War. I think it was very well done in many ways. All of these countries, all of this local association, groups of memory was very well done and very decent. I hope we'll have the same for Normandy, and that it will not evolve into some kind of a Disneyfication too much, where you have to leave experiences everywhere.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I see what you mean. Yeah. So you're still hoping it still has that commemorative piece being a large part of it. Yeah, that makes sense. Because I mean, that's what the First World War, had as well, in my sense. Anyway, I wasn't in France for the end. Anyway, I was there literally in the middle of the commemorations, just before we're actually July 1st for 1916. I was there in 2016 in June, where they were getting all that stuff ready for the Somme stuff. Was the big focus that year. So I mean, I don't know. We'll see. Again, I don't want to say for sure, because I know as a historian that never ends well. When you say something, it's definitely not going to happen. But it's just, I think it's going to be interesting to see how it goes in the next little bit. I mean, that museum that you're talking about, that, or whatever you want to call it, theater thing, I don't know if they come up with a name for it, but we'll see how that goes. I don't know. A lot of people are angry about that. I know people are angry about that. I mean, there's not much I can do or we can do, but I mean, we'll see. Yeah, so if anybody has any other questions you want to follow up, now would be a good time. Hold on. I just went to sleep. Just see if I thought I had one. I think I got them all. Yeah, I mean, that's the big thing for me is understanding how it's going to change, because it's going to change. Just what that change will be is a big one, because I know there are some vets planning on going, which is, and Canadians too, to the 80th, which is, to me, is crazy. Like, is it going to be real bad? Do you think it's going to be real busy? Lots of things? Is it going to be as big as
it's everyone it's basically every single accommodation that you can think of is already fully booked, and had been already for a few weeks, or if not month. You need to get about 60-70 kilometers away from the landing beaches to still potentially find some of the accommodation available. And no, it's going to be very, very busy. And I know some people, and me too, we would not recommend almost to some of the tourists to come around June 6th.
Well, that was going to be my question.
You won't see really anything. It will be very, very complicated, especially if it's your very first time in Normandy and you want to see the big thing and to experience where it is. You won't understand really what happened by coming at the commemoration with this year, with just hundreds of thousands of people everywhere, traffic jam, plus our president is going to be in Normandy for at least, I think, 3 days, on the 5th, 6th, and 7th, which means just for him a lot of restriction on travel to or access to some places, depending where he will be. And on June 6th, we don't know yet because nothing has been officialized yet, but we should have the American president, the King of England, the Canadian Prime Minister, probably the German Chancellor as well. I mean, we will have all of these people at the same place. You can imagine the security. And what they're going to do is what they've done for the 75th and the 70th. The entire coast will be out of bound, out of reach of every tourist, except for the people that are living along the coast or working along the coast. Me, as someone living next to the landing beaches and working there, I'll get to the municipality. I'll ask, well, I'll show my paper. I'll ask for a little sticker. I'll put the sticker in my car, and that's the only way I can drive around on June 6th. That's probably what's going to happen. So even if you're thinking about driving on June 6th, the other days, we don't know. But on June 6th, you won't be even able to get close to many of the places, which is a really good excuse to then go inland and visit some of the other battlefield where you will see no one.
Nobody. Almost. There'll be nobody there.
Basically.
They'll be
cemeteries, memorial.
Empty.
It's perfect.
Everything will be
excuse.
Everything will be empty. There'll be nobody there. Like, I mean, nobody. So yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I was going to ask. Like, just can you just tell people to stay away? Because that's what I keep hearing.
You can come. I mean, I don't mind if people want to try, as long as they understand that in terms of logistic, in terms of access, it's going to be extremely complicated. But still, it's a special atmosphere. There is the drop of paratroopers around St. Bréget. There is bagpipers on the British and Canadian side. It's always cool. There's so many things happening. So it's interesting, but you need to be aware that it will be a massive crowd. And if you don't like the crowd, if you don't like traffic jam, you're not going to have a good time.
Yeah, well said. It's going to be wild. So a couple questions, if that's all right, just to wrap up here at the end. I don't know if you can answer this. Is there sort of a ballpark base price for a tour a day? Do you guys have like a standard, or is it depending on what you want to do?
If I take amongst all of the colleagues, it depends what you want to do. There is usually an average. We're working for an entire day. It takes you an entire day, for example, if you want to visit the American landing beaches and the top 5 places, including the cemetery. Same thing, takes you at least a minimum, a big afternoon, to take people on Juno Beach. And I usually take people on a day, because even after we explore Juno Beach, we can continue a bit inland until the Ardennes Abbey. So most of the excursion are for a day. Then it's all about, is it what we call a step-on tour, or are you asking for a guide with a driver?
Right.
A guide who is also a driver. So if you got your own vehicle and the guide is stepping on board of the vehicle, the kind of average price, I think, will be around, now it will be around 400, 450 euros for an entire day. Then you can always say for an afternoon, for a help day. It depends. Every guide will have its own policy of how they're doing it. When you're a driver guide, like I am, the average is now inching closer toward 550, 600, with big differences. You will have some who will have tours for less than this. You will have some who will have tours for much more than this. Depends also of the guide. It depends of the company, because you get also private company, not just independent guide. And for people who will think this is too expensive, which I can understand, you can also join what we call group tours. So that will not be with me or any colleagues that are independent. That will be booking a seat in either a small van or a minibus of a tour company that will take you to all of the places. Then most of the time, the experience is still great. And if you're going there because you want to see the places and have at least a little bit of knowledge about what happened, these tours are still great. If you want to have something, a more personal connection, to be able to ask a lot of questions, to get out of the beaten tracks, then a private guide is always something I would recommend, especially since when you're following these tours, I did that for 9-10 years almost. At one point, we're all going at the same place on the same moment, because these tours are presetted, and there's many companies won't give a lot of rooms of improvisation to their employees, to their guide. So you go to St. Mary-Église in the morning, and you are sharing the place with 5, 6, 7, 10 of a guide. Same thing about Ponyhock, and same thing about Omaha Beach. When you're taking a private tour guide, we can go off the beaten tracks. We can try to get to other places that are not so well visited, and we can even access places where tour buses, real buses, can't go because they're just too big or too tall. So that's the different option. That's a different option. That's for the prices for private tour guide.
Yeah, it makes we all get we all get a discount, right?
Absolutely. You know what? I decided this year. It's not working pretty well right now, but I'm trying. I'll keep it. I think I'll keep it still this year and probably next year. I decided that on some of the platform I'm in, where I'm offering tours and where people can book tours, I'm starting to create tours to go inland, to get away from the landing beaches. I do a discount on this tour.
Okay.
I charge less than I usually do for a normal tour of the landing beaches or for Mont Saint-Michel or for everything as I usually do. And because these tours are something that I almost never do because people don't ask for it, anytime I have the opportunity to do it, I tell them, you know, if you want to visit the landing beaches and then you want to visit, you want to spend another day to learn what happened after DDay, you know, that second day to go inland, I'll do a little price, I'll do a little discount because it's worth going there. And I want to encourage people of at least thinking about it. Okay. Even if they don't book at the end of the day and say, no, just the landing beaches is fine. But at least thinking, okay, so maybe, why not? We don't know, we'll see.
Okay, yeah.
So it's the only way I've seen right now trying to encourage people to try to get a little bit further behind the landing beaches. So it's just something I started doing this year, 2024. I don't know if I'm going to, I don't know how successful it might be when I'm looking at all of the booking I have right now. It's not working very well. I'm not convincing people enough, but it's a beginning. I'm not the only one trying to do this. I know, you know, Paul Rudage and Colin Teller, other tour guides around here. They try to do the same to encourage people to get beyond the landing beaches.
Yeah, I mean that's the same I try to do. I mean, people asked if I was, not in a mean way. I think this might have been somebody's watching today. I don't remember who it was, but they're like, "Are you going to go anywhere other than the beaches?" And I went, "Yeah, I'm going to be mostly inland, not actually on the beaches. I think I'm going to do one day on the beach, if that, and do other stuff because I want to cover everything else. Beaches have been done to death. We know the beach. Anyone can do the beach, but going inland is very different and different context. And Ben's right. It's harder in a lot of ways, right? Because the beaches, it's pretty clear cut, right? There's 5 of them. This is it. You can see it, you know, right? You don't really need much context other than this is the beginning of the invasion, and then that's you're pretty good. Anyway, other than that, well, actually, one more question because I'm interested in this myself, if it even comes up. Oh, where'd it go? A question about asking if this is even done, being viewed from the water. Have you ever had anybody do that? Like hire a boat to go out in the channel and look? Is that something you've ever
I,
heard of?
I wanted to do it, and I couldn't find. I think there is one boat who's doing it from. I think it's from Grand Camp, but he's not departing every day.
Right.
It's very limited in terms of how many people can get it in, and they just go as far as Point du Hoc, I think,
Okay.
and Utah Beach, and they go to the Samarkuf Island that are close to Utah Beach. I think that's what they're doing. But I remember when I was taking a private tour on Etretat, this famous big cliff in Normandy that were painted by Monet, and it's the cliff of Etretat. And I was on a private tour there, and the travel agency had booked for the client a boat tour of Etretat, to see Etretat from the sea and the cliff from the sea. And I talked to but that was what, 7 years ago. I talked to the guy who was owning the company, having people taking a little excursion on boat to see everything from the sea. And he told me, "Oh yeah, you're working on the landing beach. I would love to try to, set up the same business in Port-en-Bessin or somewhere to try to take people on the landing beaches, but to see it from the sea, to have this kind of Navy perspective." And I always thought that's a brilliant idea. But as of right now, it hadn't been done. I know my girlfriend is pushing me. "Oh, just train yourself, do all of the permit to be able to buy a boat, and you'll offer the thing." I don't know if I want to do it myself. It's a bit complicated. But I'm always keeping an eye on what the possibilities are, because it's definitely something that I would like to be able to tell people about. I mean, I can not only be a guide. I did tours on land. I did tours from helicopter.
Oh wow!
With getting it's. You want to see, the only way to see all of the landing beaches in one day? Helicopter. We'll do it. No problem. We'll do it in 40 minutes, 1 hour, and you will have seen all of the landing beaches. It's spectacular. But I did it only with very wealthy people. But I haven't seen the landing beaches from the sea yet. And I think it could be really interesting. But there's no big offer for this.
Yeah, I didn't think there was, because I've thought the same, right? Like let's try to
we'll see.
As you can, but
as soon as there's something being organized, I'll be in touch with them, because I will be almost offering it to the travel agent or the tour company I'm working with. That's another fantastic opportunity, something different if you want your clients to leave. To experience the beaches on a very meaningful, different way.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what my thinking was, right? It's a perspective you don't get. It's hardly ever. I mean, there's footage, but not even that much. There's tons of naval footage, but hardly any looking at the beach. It's weird. Anyway, that's an aside. But I think it's an opportunity. So hey, if anyone's out there listening, do it, because I know people do boat tours. I mean, Alt 92 is saying it's difficult, and it is. I know that it's not easy, but people do it in other places, and there's got to be a demand for it. So maybe we can get something started. But other than that, we can hope. We can hope.
The tide in Normandy are quite huge to work with.
Oh, yeah.
You need to know. I mean, you know also about it. You studied Juno Beach in a lot of detail. You know all of the shallows and all of the sandbanks you have there, all of the rocky ledge you have next to Juno and Sword, and even out of Utah Beach. Without mentioning the weather and the wind, which in Normandy can be another problem. So it's not easy.
No, definitely not easy. Yeah, I mean, it's not easy in tropical conditions, and then throw in channel conditions with this, and it's difficult. All right, other than that, I think we got all the questions. So thanks for coming on. I appreciate it to get your insights and talk about Normandy, because you're literally right in the middle of all of it, literally, to see all this. So it's great to get your insights and not in a mean way, somebody younger, someone my age, because a lot of people have been doing this a long time, right? Not that that's a bad thing, but getting a different perspective is always a good thing. So thanks for coming on. Real appreciate it. And everyone for watching.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah, there you go. I'm glad to hear that. We didn't make you work too hard.
Oh, no.
All right, everyone. Got another live stream coming up on the 31st. It's going to be a bit, but we're going to get into the Normandy stuff. We're talking about the mine sweeping done by the Canadians, actually, which is off Utah Beach. So that'll be really interesting. And everyone stay tuned for that. Other than that, see everybody next time. Have a good rest of your day, everybody.